Oh, look at these ladies.
Oh, no.
Absolutely.
Oh, no.
Are we all in our uniforms? Chelsea said that we each have a uniform.
Welcome, ladies. Could each of you please introduce yourselves? Anna's Angels.
Hi, my name is Sammi. My current title is Director of Operations and Content Strategy for US Vogue. I was in Anna's office from August 2023 until October 2025.
A full 2 years.
A full 2 years, and left quite recently.
Okay.
Marley Marius, Senior Editor. I was in Anna's office from May of 2017 to August of 2018.
Sache Taylor, introduce yourself, please.
I'm the Director of Special Events.
When were you in Anna's office?
Well, I didn't come prepared with the dates, but
Surely you can do this. It's like the years you were in
February
college.
2019
Yeah.
to 2023, 2022. I was there for 4 years.
That's crazy. And
was
also
during the
they were
pandemic.
during COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was good.
She says
Podcast
convincingly,
over.
right? So we are here today for a very important episode of Fact versus Fiction, Devil Wears Prada edition. You were each assistants to Anna Wintour. Can you tell me how each of you briefly came to get this role? Didn't you have some crazy LinkedIn story, Sammi?
Yes, it was a LinkedIn story. I graduated from college in 2022 from Northwestern University, which is actually where Andy Sachs in The Devil Wears Prada went as well.
So true.
In the movie,
So-
not the book. In the book, she went to Brown.
Noted. I noted that.
Well, so after I graduated from school, I moved to New York, 2022. I started working at CAA, Creative Artists Agency here in New York. I was an assistant in the theater department. And about 11 months into that, I was at dinner one night and I got a random LinkedIn DM message from a Condé Nast recruiter. And they were asking me to interview to be Anna's assistant.
Wow.
They didn't use her name. They used her full, very long title, which is Global Editorial Director of Vogue and Chief Content Officer of Condé Nast. So
I like
didn't,
that they thought that was discreet.
but honestly, I knew who Anna was, but I wasn't in the Vogue and Condé Nast world of it all to know that that was her title. I assumed it was a level below or something like that.
Okay.
But I took the interview the next day with the recruiter, learned it was for Anna. I had 5 very quick interviews after that, the last one being with Anna herself. And within a week, I got the job.
Wow. And how quickly did you start?
I gave my 2 weeks as soon as I got the offer. And so I started 2 weeks later.
Wow. I like that in the book, they want Andy to start the next day.
Yeah.
And she has to sort of emergency move from her parents' house in Connecticut. All right, Marley Marius, how did you get the job?
Yeah, to me, sort of a complicated story short.
It's the best story.
And it's so long. Anna was the commencement speaker when I was graduating from high school.
a prestigious girls' school in New York City known as Spence.
And I sort of campaigned for that to happen.
Aww.
And I wrote a thank you note, and she responded. Her office responded through her email address, and I sort of kept in touch over the years. Ultimately, I sort of indicated that I was about to graduate from college. She forwarded my email to the head of, or an HR person at the time, Meg Gruppo, and was like, see if Marley wants to interview for my office. I interviewed at the beginning of May 2017, and I started the week after I graduated from college.
Interesting. So that feels distinctly different than Andy Sachs, who famously did not know who Miranda Priestley was.
Oh, yeah, I sure did know who
You
Anna was.
had a whole Anna Wintour
Yeah.
commencement speaker campaign launched and succeeded.
Indeed.
Sasha, how did you get the job?
I started as an assistant in special events.
Okay.
And I was helping out. I think 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, they offered me the position and I took it.
Who was your first assistant at the time?
Jessie Nichols.
Right.
She was the best first assistant. She was lovely.
We love Jessie Nichols.
Yes. I didn't have a formal interview process, but I remember on my first real day with her, it was when she was coming back from Australia, and it was crazy.
I want to know what was the most unnerving part of the interview process with Anna.
Well, I mean, for me, and I was reminded of this reading the book, just how quickly everything was happening, because the first day that I went in, I met with HR, and then I met with Corinne Pierre-Louis, who was the first assistant at the time. And she was there for a year ultimately. And then I came in the next day to meet with Christian Mack and John Gluck. John Gluck at the time was the managing editor. Christian was like head of content operations. And I thought I was just meeting with them. I didn't think I was meeting with Anna. And then eventually it was like, oh, you're going to meet with Anna. So I was just kind of like sitting around for like an hour and a half to eventually meet with her. I think I was wearing a navy turtleneck sweater and black pants. I don't remember what shoes. I kind of do think they were heels, but yeah.
Ooh.
I think I wore a dress the first day, but I didn't wear the dress the second day because I just didn't think that was going to happen. But I knew I needed to be neat anyway. But I like felt like myself though, which I think was important.
Did she ask you guys any questions that you weren't expecting or that threw you off?
She only asked personal questions. Well, like, what do you do on your free time?
Yeah.
What do you read? Which I wasn't expecting.
What about you, Sammi?
Questions were personal. She made it very clear that it was going to be an intense job, which it proved to be. The night before I was meeting with Anna, I went to Bloomingdale's and I just bought like bags, dresses, things that I would never wear myself in a million years. And then I ended up just wearing a dress I had from Zara. But I did try on like 10 different outfits that I soon returned after.
Wow.
I do remember Christian and John kind of being like, Anna she doesn't like want a career assistant. Like she wants people in her office who like have interests and who like want to do things like with their lives, like have lives outside of work, hopefully. And sort of, yeah, I remember them being like, she doesn't want a robot. Like she wants people with like personality and with interests. So I tried to lean into that.
Did any of you read the book before starting in Anna's office?
No, but I did watch the movie. But I had already seen it. But I rewatched it before I started.
I did a lot of internships in college.
Okay.
And the night before every internship, I would watch Devil Wears Prada.
Oh my God. Okay.
Even though like none of the internships were that. But I never expected that I would be here, really. But I did not end up watching it before my interview at Vogue. I don't know why. It was a weird phone interview, that's why.
Oh. To be in
yeah, so
special
I was
events?
in England when I got the phone interview.
Yeah. Was that with Edie?
No, it was with Kara Sanders, now Kara Brand.
Love her.
I still am indebted to her because she hired me off a phone call.
That's incredible.
But I met her over the phone, and then she was like, well, I'd love to meet you in person. And my dear mother got me a flight back to New York.
Wow.
And I met her 2 days later. I got the job that day, and I stayed for like 3 months and was paying rent in London. It was horrible.
What?
But
Oh my God.
yeah.
Things we
Sammi,
do.
did you read it?
Right.
No, and I still haven't.
Oh my God,
I need
are you
to
reading
take
it
a
for the book
copy.
club?
I need to take a copy from your office.
Well, I think you've
We're
missed your
low.
chance.
Well, I need to ask someone else.
I think there's like one left in
okay.
the mini library in Chloe's office.
So I will take that. But no, I had watched the movie only once, like a year before getting the interview. And then during the interview process, I watched, I think, half of it.
What did you learn from watching it?
Oh, gosh. I honestly learned more. The night before my interview, I watched Anna's masterclass that she has.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I feel like I took a lot
interesting.
from that. There's a whole section in her masterclass that says how to prepare for an interview to be my
Oh,
assistant.
that's so funny.
But I think one of the things that stuck out to me from that is she just says she really wants someone to come into her office and be themselves. And so similarly to Marley, I have a background and interest in theater, and I knew that Anna did too. So that was a main focal point of our conversation was
What was
theater.
your version of Sunday in the Park with George? What show had you just seen?
Well, I was at CAA and we were repping a lot of clients who had shows that season that I knew Anna was seeing and interested in. I think we talked about Parade. That was the year of Parade. So Ben Platt, Michael Arden,
So
people who are,
funny.
you know, often around the Vogue world. They were people who, you know, we were working on contracts for at CAA too. So
Yeah.
Interesting. People keep repeating to Andy in the film and in the book, a million women would kill for this job. How did people in your lives actually react when you got this job?
My friends from home, like, they didn't care because they're not in this world. I went to fashion school, so my friends from school were very excited.
Did people ask you questions about the book or the movie?
Yeah.
The first
Constantly.
question is it just like the
Devil-
book?
Yeah.
I mean, the
Is
movie.
it just like the Devil Wears Prada?
Yeah.
Always. And I feel like the answer was kind of like, no. I mean, like,
I say yes.
I'm
like,
like
yes with
kind
an
of like
asterisk.
not, yeah, like there are shades, but like not like that. Like obviously it's sort of a different thing. But yeah, that is the question every time. But I think everyone gets that, whether you're in the office or not, right? Like you
Yes,
get that.
Working at Vogue.
Like everyone gets that. Yeah.
Yes.
Does she walk around with her sunglasses?
Which also like not know.
Yeah,
Like, it
not know,
depends.
yeah.
In the movie, there are two Emilys. There's almost always two assistants. There used to be three. When I started, Anna had three assistants. AW123. When each of you started, usually someone starts as AW2 and then graduates into AW1. What are the difference between those two roles typically?
In my day, it was personal and executive. First assistant was the executive, so you were really scheduling things, doing finances.
What's the relationship between the two assistants? Is it mentor-mentee? Is it more peer-like? Does it depend?
When it was very mentor-mentee. I felt
It's
like
not like Emily and Andy?
I mean, I never had that experience. I was very much lucked out with both who was my first and then both who was my second.
Who was your second?
Carolina Gonzalez. But she was great. And it was really nice to kind of, when you're going into a leadership role, have someone to kind of impart wisdom on, for lack of a better word. But I lucked out with both of my people. I think it was a really great experience all around. But I obviously am very interested in events. And so I wanted to go to all the events with her and like manage all the events that she would go to. And also
Marley's
just like
nightmare.
manage coordination with the events team as well. So at a point, I really took whatever I wanted from the first. Because also Jessie was very flexible and she was like, if there's something that you want to work on, totally do it.
Yeah, and I would say for the most part, Anna funnels her communication through the first assistant.
Yeah.
And as do most people in the office too. And then the first assistant can decide what they want to delegate to the second assistant.
Yeah.
I want to know, obviously, a big plot arc of the book and the movie is the sort of unraveling of Andy's personal life when she's in this intense job, which I think is not unique to this position. But I want to know how your personal lives fared when you were in Anna's office.
I think everyone in my life at that time was very supportive of me. And I think it was kind of a conversation I had to have with the people in my life at the time of like, okay, if I take this job, this is what it will mean, for my friends, for my family, and every relationship I had at that time. And I think people are very excited for you. And they also like to hear about Vogue and hear about the world that you're in. So while your friends might not get to see you as much, I was very lucky in that I had supportive people in my life who were able just to come over on the weekends and sit with me at home while I just sat on my computer. And you make it work.
I mean, I'll say that well, first of all, I don't think I appreciated this at the time, but I think the fact that I was living at home the whole time, I was in Anna's office, was probably helpful and kind of grounding. Like, there were people at home when I got home, no matter what time it was. And I'm sure being around my parents was sort of helpful in some way. But I'll also say that and I don't think this is unique to Vogue. And as you're saying, I don't think it's quite unique to being in Anna's office. But I do find that in this job, or when you're working in media and the job is sort of responding to things that are happening in the world, it's very easy for the job just to become your life. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. For me, I'm Vogue people are my community. I think that's also just a function of starting here when I was 22 and now being 31. So I'm these people are the people in my life. I don't think of that as being a bad thing. I can imagine other people not wanting kind of more of a separation between work and life. But for me, they're just kind of knitted together. That's just fine. That's just kind of what it is. And my Vogue friends are my friends, and I think that's okay. So
yeah, I agree.
Oh yeah, was there anything found it quite striking in the book that Andy's roommate is trying to sign for an apartment with her, and she feels she can't even say yes or no on the phone on a personal call.
Yeah.
What's the vibe in real life?
I mean, reading that, I was why are you taking a personal call in the middle of the day?
Yeah.
I'm
she was looking at the apartment.
But I'm you're busy. And I was finding Lily so annoying. I was Lily, this is not a good time. Can this wait? Or I'm Lily, just sign the thing and figure it out later. You know what I mean? I was so anti-Andy and throughout the book because I'm she's not taking this job seriously enough. I was she's not prioritizing this position. She has a bad attitude. No wonder she gets fired. Anyway, I mean, I didn't have any experiences like that. I was just kind of I think everyone knew not to bother me. If my parents didn't hear from me, they were she's working,
Yeah, it's really something you have to be okay when you sign up for it. You're committing 120% to it for X amount of time.
Yeah.
And again, that's why one of you said in the beginning, Anna doesn't have career assistance in part because of that mentorship component, but because you do have to dedicate so much, I think, of your time just to do a good job. And if you're going to do this, you want to do a good job.
Yeah.
What is a typical day in the life of an assistant?
Something I did find that was quite nice was there had been so many assistants in that position that it was very organized and very prescribed. I found I had a 21-page handbook. It was nice to know that so many people have filled these roles, so there are very specific ways of doing things, which I found quite
Who
helpful.
updates the handbook? Is it the outgoing first assistant when they leave?
That's a good question, probably.
I'm not sure that many things get updated. What changes?
I know. Well, but now I'm I do feel things are
oh, completely different now.
Yeah, just different people are around and yeah, I do like it. Yeah, the day started really early. So like someone's getting Anna coffee in the morning kind of thing, or getting her breakfast and setting up the office.
What does setting up the office include? I know in the book there's like
it was-
laboriously detailed going down to the newsstand, getting all the new newspapers and things, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't happen anymore.
No.
Everything she's reading early in the morning online, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it was just setting up her breakfast and like opening her office doors.
Yeah, it was like opening the doors, setting up the boards, printing out the schedule.
What's setting up the board?
An iPad that we use on the desk where it shows her to-dos that day, reminders, and then
It's
who
not
wants to speak
printed.
with her.
It's on an iPad.
It's on an iPad because it changes so much.
Yeah, and
so
it's
someone
like
wants to see
messages.
her.
Because in the
someone-
book, there's a whole thing
they're
about
printing out all
constantly
the time.
reprinting, and
Yeah.
it's who's fastest
Well, you have to
reprint.
reprint the schedule, and that changes often.
Anna still prefers to see most documents printed. The board is probably the one thing that does live on a tech platform, but all any emails that we help draft or send on her behalf, she has to review those printed. Even if it's a one-liner, she'll write an edit and then it's printed. So any speeches, people are constantly giving things to her office to show Anna, and all these documents next to this iPad is something we call the inbox, and it's like a physical paper tray. And so throughout that day, we're constantly adding documents to this paper tray, and Anna will come back to her desk in between her many meetings. She's typically back to back all day. And when she has a few minutes, she'll just pick up whatever's in that physical inbox, write her edits, and then pass the documents back to her office to process them.
And when she wasn't at the office, it was a lot of faxing things, learning how to fax things to her home.
A lot of faxing.
Yeah, so.
Are we still faxing?
I don't think so.
They fax sometimes yes.
I loved it. I felt so retro.
Yeah, honestly.
In the film and in the book, there's a lot of when her driver calls up to say she's on her way up.
Yeah.
The security guard calls up. She's coming. Gird your loins. What's the real version of that?
Honestly, I don't think it's not as dramatic as that, but it does happen. Usually get a call from her driver saying that she dropped her off, and it's usually 2 to 3, 5 minutes, depending on what time it is, for her to get upstairs. And you do want to be prepared.
But it's just like the people in her like it's not the
Yeah,
whole
it's not
office.
the whole office.
It's just like
well, by
her
the time she comes in, there's no one
assistants.
usually there.
Well, that's also
She is
true.
the first one, aside from her assistants, in the office. But I do think that's not even just specific to Anna and Vogue. I think, at a lot of companies where you do have a leader who has a lot of respect and, people feel that way when they come up to the office. You
I
want
mean,
to make
there's
sure
definitely
everyone's
still a conversation
settled.
like, is she in today?
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
she
of
gone?
course.
But I mean, there's not this like mass panic of throwing off your flats and putting on your heels.
I mean, I changed out of my clogs into more like appropriate shoes for sure. But that was like
What were your appropriate shoes, Marley?
they were. I think I was wearing like smoking slippers or something. Like I was wearing like slippers.
Okay.
Because at first I was told that I needed to wear heels, and I was like, and I did
Who
for a
told you
bit.
that?
The first assistant, Corinne, she was kind of like, everyone in Anna's office wears heels, and I was like, well, we're going to give that a go. And that maybe lasted for like 2 weeks.
hard.
Things are happening at a certain pace, and it sometimes involves a
lot of
bit of
running.
running. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was finding it not practical to be in heels. Also, you're like running to print things, like it. So
Explain why you're running.
when she,
You just want to be timely.
yes, when she asks for someone, she wants that person very quickly.
But
said
it's
about
important to herd. You have to herd
Sorry, who are you hurting?
like any of the editors.
bathroom.
Because people will slow down, and so if you walk like behind them, you can just.
Oh my
But
god!
there is, but you
I-
don't
that's
want
what I-
Shepherd to Taylor.
I definitely did that a lot.
Okay, so you would herd people to move them at a swifter pace towards a meeting
basically,
room.
In my day, what you would do is the first assistant would call whoever it was,
Yeah.
and then I would run to get them.
Yes.
And then sometimes the call would beat me, or I would beat the call, and so then I would just hover until they were ready. If I hover, usually they are faster, and then I would let them walk in front of me, and then I would walk behind them.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I do remember a distinct, when I started working here in 2011, it was like a flurry of fingers on the landline calling everyone's landline. So like you would get the second assistant, actually both assistants, Anna would say, I want pre-release early and similar, or I want this run through early, and similar to the book and the movie where it's like everyone's expecting it in an hour.
Yeah.
Their hands are flying to dial
Yeah.
14
Yeah.
4-digit
Extensions,
extensions.
yes. Yeah.
And you get we all used to have landlines, RIP.
Yeah.
You would answer, you didn't even have to hear anything.
Like pre-release now.
Pre-release
What?
now,
Yeah.
hang
Yeah.
up. And then you'd have to run. And then after all those numbers were dialed, the stragglers would have to be gone and fetched.
Yep.
and then herded
Yeah.
to the room to
Yeah.
keep things moving.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I
now
always hated
there's
pre-release
no
days.
landline. So there's some cell phone calling, there's an email that will go out, but it's mostly running around.
Yes.
That's just tough. I mean, I think that's worse.
I loved the running around because you were so busy. I could never exercise.
You were also a runner. Yeah.
So I would just like run in the
Wow,
office.
that was your exercise.
Yeah.
I ran a marathon my 2-month. This November, I started working for Anna, which was
That's crazy.
a hard
Wow.
thing.
One of the biggest moments in the book is about handling the book and in the movie. Can you guys break down what that process is actually like and what is the book? How is it used? When and where is it going?
Back to what Anna's assistant's doing today, her whole office is centered around something called the take-home bag. Take home as in you take it home. It's kind of
Take you.
Homework.
like, well, some people are always like, take home what? Take
And describe the
Basically-
take-home bag because it
Yes.
looms large.
So it looms large. It's an LLB extra large open boat tote. And this is Anna's homework bag. She never wants anyone waiting on her for feedback. So throughout the day, it's Anna's assistant's job to think about what she needs to review that night in order to be caught up. So they're printing out different documents,
Yep.
whether it's speeches or event guest
Or
lists.
copy from the magazine.
Yes, that she needs to
That's a big one,
include.
and something I'm really impressed by is that Anna reads every single thing that goes into the magazine, and that all goes into her take-home, and she will read. If 3 4,000-word pieces come in one night, she is giving feedback, very detailed feedback on all of them by the next morning.
Exactly. And the bag is that process that allows her to do that. And so the book is just another one of those items that goes in the bag. And this is a dummy book of that magazine issue that's coming out usually 3 months later. We start these, I'd say 3-4 months in advance.
Well, for example, right now, we have the book of the summer issue, and that will come out in early June. It's a printing, 8.5 by 11 printouts of every page in the magazine in a 3-ring binder. Not binder, but a 3-ring
Book.
book.
Yeah.
And a lot of Post-its
Yeah.
are going on that book.
Sometimes Post-its without any writing. So people are
Yes.
just kind of like, something's amiss here. Something we're going to have a conversation about later, probably.
So how long do you have to wait to get the book to take it home?
Sometimes it was late.
Yeah, it really depends.
Anna has a doctor's handwriting.
I was going to say, are we allowed to talk about that?
I think
She's talked about it.
She's talked about that.
It's so, like, it's a skill.
like,
My
the
favorite.
village
I
it
know.
takes to
Yes.
decode, and
It's so
Anna
satisfying.
They're better. I used to send
No, I'm
them
not
photos
good.
all the time.
When Marley
I'm pretty good at
cracks
it.
something,
I'm
I am
pretty
in
good at it.
awe.
I'm pretty
I
good
still,
at it.
There was one time when I couldn't, it was something that Taylor Antrim had, and I could not figure it out. And I got it at like 10 p.m. that night because I could not stop
what was
thinking
it?
about it. Oh, I don't remember now.
It's
But it
the
was like,
best
you remember
feeling when
any
you get something.
examples?
It's like, oh,
when you resolve it, it's like, it's
And
amazing.
sometimes I find you have to take a picture of it and really sit with it for all.
yeah. You would
Like, you really have
flip
to
it upside
think-
down,
Yeah,
like
really.
step
You have to
away.
use a lot of context.
and like hover over things.
Literally. You
Yeah.
have to be
all
like,
this to
I think
avoid asking her.
True.
To
So
be
I would
clear.
allow myself to ask her once a week.
Oh, I was asking her like I was like I can't. There's no time for this. I was like, and sometimes Anna will be like, oh, I don't know. Like she doesn't
she
know
was
what
so
it says. I'm
difficult.
like, well,
Sometimes you just have to like take an educated guess and just see if it's right.
Yeah,
And it's-
exactly. For remarks, I would always be just like, well,
Yeah, you
this
just
works.
have to give it a go, and then she'll tell you if it's wrong.
Oh, she
Exactly.
will tell. She'll always tell you if it's wrong.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, in the book and the movie, run-throughs loom large because it's quite. I feel like people are so fascinated by those because they're so physical. It's like
Yeah.
moving racks
Yeah.
quickly down a hall into her office.
Yeah.
Are the assistants involved in the run-throughs at all? What does that look like?
We're involved in scheduling them.
Okay.
And then sometimes we help with a rack, but
Yeah,
mostly
it's
not.
just, or they, moving the racks around, I guess.
It was fun to listen though because that's one of the
Yeah.
things that really is true to the movie.
Yeah.
And I remember that was a cool moment where I was like, wow, I'm at Vogue, and it's because you get to
Like,
the
give an
doors are
example.
open.
Like, what are some things discussed?
They discuss it's really that whole cerulean moment.
Yeah.
They roll the whole fashion rack or 2 racks into Anna's office.
Trays of
It's-
accessories.
and it's the sittings editor and our global head of fashion, Virginia Smith, and they run Anna through all the clothes that they have picked out for whatever upcoming shoot we have, and Anna gives her feedback, and the feedback might be, this looks great. It might be like, it mostly looks great except for this one thing, or it might be like,
Start over.
we need to totally
Yeah.
start over.
And they were talking about the casting sometimes.
Yeah,
right?
so talent is usually there. Raul's always there.
Yes.
I remember when I was first, it was always trying to figure out where Raul was. Because he was so busy, he's always running around.
Yeah.
Do you do run-throughs?
Yes, I do run-throughs. Anna also now often will come down to the closet now
great.
that it's on 20. She still likes to be involved in a run-through. I think she really enjoys it. We've been doing them together, or I'll just do it alone with Virginia, Naomi, and the sittings editor. I also think it's nice to have the photographer involved sometimes. I think that will yield some feedback that you maybe didn't expect. But I find run-throughs are really helpful. And I think before I was in this current role, I didn't appreciate what a difference they make for really grasping this sittings editor's vision for the shoot, and that can really make a difference. So obviously in the movie, Andy undergoes a major makeover, but can you guys debunk that a bit? Did any of you go through a makeover? Do you get dressed from the closet? Can you discuss what an assistant's dress code typically looks like? Are you wearing heels like Marley Marius?
I wore heels every day.
Really?
I wore Joseph boots with long black trousers and then just a different sweater every day.
Yeah.
Interesting. How high a heel?
3 inches?
Okay.
4 inches maybe?
Wow.
That's high.
That's
No,
crazy.
it wasn't
I mean,
4.
Maybe it was 3?
I think it
4
was
is
2
crazy.
or 3.
Okay.
But good for you.
Oh, yeah, but they were the most comfortable. I mean, I wore them to my first Met. They were the best. I've retired them, though.
But you did like kind of have a uniform.
Yes,
ultimately.
definitely. Wore black trousers and a shirt, sweater every day.
You still sort of wear that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Since I was like such a sort of Vogue fangirl, I like really
Glad you said it.
I know, but I really like admired Tawny Goodman in particular, and I was like, okay, it's cool to have a uniform. Like if you like, you know, you can kind of wear the same thing every day if it's like very neat. And so I would wear like a white linen shirt, like collarless linen shirt, and like black pants, and then like smoking slippers or whatever, and like maybe a sweater. And I did that every day because I was like, you don't want to have to wake up and like think about what you're wearing every day when you have to wake up so early. And
There were so many assistants. Like Jessie would have a full outfit every day.
So did Jasmine.
I just didn't understand how they did that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, because I was also like, I'm not a fashion girl in that way. Like I liked fashion a lot and I appreciated it, but like I wasn't like being dressed up wasn't quite my thing.
Yeah.
So
there was a woman I was getting interviewed by someone and in the office, and I had to greet them. And they wrote about me in the interview saying, and the assistant was wearing all black. Anna must have hated that.
Oh, stop.
I was like, she doesn't care.
Sammy, what's your uniform?
I'd say I'm usually in some sort of a heeled shoe. My first 2 weeks, I did wear like a full like pump, and I had crazy blisters. Like it was so bad. So I retired that after 2 weeks after seeing how much we had to run. But now I'll just wear a booty usually. I prefer some height. If we come in on a Friday, that's when I would use a ballet flat if my feet were getting tired. But yeah, I'll just wear like black pants and usually a blazer and a nice shirt.
I feel like you're doing a big suiting look.
Yes.
Suiting look.
I feel like I like the phrase like dress for your day, but I also think when you're in Anna's office or any, role at Vogue, you never know what's going to happen. And so
true.
You have these like important meetings with important people pop up, and, last week, it was a Friday, and I typically dress down for a Friday, and then, Anna has people meeting her and she'll pull you into meetings. So it's always, I think, nice to have at least a little blazer.
Dress for the day you want.
Dress for the day you want. I like that. I'll adopt. Yeah, but that is what I try to do.
I'm curious when what's the worst Anna's ever seen you in? Because I have an answer.
I want to debunk the closet.
Yeah,
because there's no borrowing
No.
from the closet.
No.
Like I remember when I started at Vogue and I was covering a lot of events when I was, in my 20s. There was a certain rack of the closet where you could borrow shoes, but like the Manolos were kept in a cupboard locked by key, and only Mimosa had the key.
Mimosa, keeper of the Manolos.
Is the keeper of the Manolos and everything else in the closet.
Yeah.
But there's not clothes to be borrowed in the closet because the closet is really clothes that are called in for specific shoots. There are, say, undergarments that are kept, tights, hats, things that you might need to accessorize or help a shoot.
Yeah.
But clothes themselves, it's very rare that that's happening.
Right. I will say though that like for the Met, you can. I mean, I have borrowed shoes for the Met. I think. Yeah, I mean, I feel like on very special occasions, if you're really in a pinch, you can probably borrow something.
Yes.
But yeah, you're not like clothes aren't being thrown at you for like events. Like
But you can call them in, which is lovely.
Sure.
Some people can borrow clothes, but that's a favor that fashion PRs do for Vogue. It has to be meted out with care.
Yeah, it's not the way it's described at all in the book. Like,
No,
and I
not
will
at
say
all.
people dress very differently now than when I started, where it really
Yes.
was the opening montage of the film of, women having 5 almonds and pulling their stockings up and the perfect shoe that's 4 inches high. And no one was wearing those shoes on the subway was kind of the vibe people wanted to give off. And now I feel like everyone's walking around in Adidas by Wales Bonner. And roll neck J. Crew.
yeah.
I'd say there's this one, as you said, most people, like a lot of people in the office are in jeans, sneakers. But like the one unspoken rule, I think it was never explicitly said, but in Anna's office is that there's no jeans or no sneakers.
Yeah.
So
Definitely no jeans.
yeah, but other people in the office will wear those things, but no jeans and no
Yeah, so
sneakers.
when I graduated out of Anna's office, it's the first thing I did. I started wearing jeans to the office. It was amazing.
Wow. Marley, I've never seen you in jeans.
I don't really like jeans. I don't really like a jean. God knows I dress casually in other ways. but yeah, not really blue jeans kind of gal.
Did anyone ever give you a makeover of sorts or take you under their wing?
No.
No, but I do remember, like, again, at the one Met that I went to in Anna's office, like, I do remember, like, Tawny kind of, like, helping me with, like, I was wearing, like, this, like, long red dress from the row, and I feel like there was
subtle
some
flex.
kind of, I know, but I
Chic.
feel like there was some kind of, like, I don't know whether she added this ribbon or like it was like closed by a ribbon. I do remember her kind of like doing something, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "This is crazy." So, and then also, subsequent years, people are helping with Met stuff. That's kind of the only
Yes.
example.
The
can
Met, I
think
would
of.
say Willa Lindley has always
Yes.
been the person
Annie
that helped
Choi
me.
also would help with like staff, like not also later.
I want to know what it was like working your first Met.
I mean,
Any fun stories?
Long day.
Did you have to memorize a face sheet and whisper to Anna when the ambassador and his new mistress arrived?
No, that's my job
That's
now.
Sasha's job. She
As
does a
events
great
director.
job at it.
Thank you.
funny.
I unfortunately know everybody,
wow.
but they don't know me. I didn't have to memorize things. The weirdest thing was running up the stairs, like running up the red carpet stairs. That was unnerving because there was just like so many cameras and so many people. And you think that like eyes are going to be on you when you're running up those stairs, but no one cares, which is fantastic. But I got caught on the live stream and woke up to many, many texts being like, I saw you.
Oh, that's funny.
When Anna arrives to the Met, she does all of her press interviews,
Yeah.
and then her assistants arrive with her, but they're obviously not doing the interviews with her, so we kind of just make
Scurry.
a beeline behind her up the stairs and then wait for her at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else from the film or book that you would like to debunk, or the biggest misconception about being Anna's assistant?
Well, I mean, an important point that's made early on and then you sort of see it at the end is really how supportive Anna is when you are moving on. And I mean, all three of us are good examples of this, where, I mean, certainly most of the moves that I've made through Vogue, Anna was directly responsible for. Like, she moved me out of her office into working with Mark Holgate and Hamish Bowles. And then in 2020, she got on a Zoom with me and she was like, your assisting days are over. Now you're working on the culture team. I think she was the one who suggested that I write the Zendaya cover story. Like, when she feels that you've done a good job, or when she feels like you've been in a certain role long enough, in my personal experience, she's very supportive about helping you make your next step. Because she, I think she wants people at Vogue to sort of feel fulfilled and do jobs that are appropriate to them and, not sort of feel stagnant. And she, I think, believes in people before maybe they necessarily know what they can do. And that, I mean, I am sort of very grateful for her for that reason and for lots of reasons, but certainly for that reason.
I mean, Sasha's planning the Met Gala now.
Literally, the glow up.
Feels just like yesterday.
Thank you, ladies. Very
you,
exciting.
Chloe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chloe. You look like a proud mom.
It's too much, actually.